Alright everybody, it's been about I think a year and a half since my last Pipsqueek tiny house wood stove video, and so I thought I'd just do an update, talk about how it's been having the little Pipsqueek in our house and kind of the pros and cons. What I found is chopping up some kindling. This happens to be maple, but chopping up a bunch of kindling to start it, pretty small like that. And I just pile a bunch in. This is kind of my starting method here. It's not 100. It's dry, except that I think it got a little damp outside, so it goes pretty good. So I usually get her pretty full, and then like you can see that's a little damp, so I'm gonna hold off on that one. I fill it up pretty good, and then stick a smaller one in. Stick a little bit larger piece in like that, and then this is what I found. Instead of loading it up with a bunch of paper that creates ash, I just keep this little propane torch on hand. I think I did this in my last video, and then I light it this way. It seems, you know, helps get the draft going right away, and as long as I have that kindling in there, it lights up pretty easily. What we found is, you know, this is kind of your ideal size piece of wood. 2 inches by, what, 3 inches or so. If you get bigger than that, sometimes it has a hard time. You can only put 1 or 2 of those in there, and sometimes the fire will go out. Unless you have a real good bed of coals, but that does pretty good. And as I mentioned, this isn't 100% dry kindling here, so it's going to take a second to get it going. But it heats the place up real quick. We do have a little electric heater, but you know, if we want to get it warmed up in here real fast, then we'll fire this up. Like we just got home. Let me check, the temp is 61 in here. So in order to get the temperature up to, you know, 68 or 70 right away, we'll light this guy and get it warmed up, and then the little heater, if we're too lazy to keep feeding the fire, or if we're leaving the house for a little while, we let the fire burn out, and then the heater will keep kind of maintain the heat. But the thing about the Pipsqueek, you do have to feed it pretty frequently. Maybe if you bought some really high quality like ironwood or some really dense oak, it would burn longer, but I found that you only get about 20 to 30 minutes of burn time more wood in, which for the tiny house, you know, if you're just sitting here reading by the fire, or even if you're cooking, you can feed it pretty frequently, and it's not a big deal because you're right next to it. You know, you can't go too far. At night, we let it burn out, and because we like to sleep with a little bit cooler temperature anyways, so we let it burn out at night, and then, you know, it might dip down to 55 by morning, and then we get up and light it again in the morning. So let's see if we got it going here. I'm gonna throw another piece on. It does have a little, these little, I don't know what you call them, but little, for opening and closing, the amount of oxygen that gets in there. And honestly, I found that just cracking the little ashtray down here is the best way to control the amount of oxygen getting in there. And so I have kind of played with these before, but they don't really seem to they don't really regulate the heat all that well, I don't think. So what I found is just keeping this bottom cracked open. What else about it? I don't know. I'll let it get going here, and then
you'll see how it goes here in just a minute with once it gets burning pretty good. And it cranks out some heat. It does sometimes, the little glass kind of darkens up from smoke, and like right now, you know, it's just some moisture on it from this wood that's not perfectly dry. It's been down in the forest for quite a while, but I didn't cut it up in the summertime, so it just has a little bit of moisture in it just from the humidity in the northwest here. All right, well, that's about it for right now, but I might chime in here again in a minute.